Quit your job at 54 and pull from your 401k, and the IRS takes a 10% penalty on every dollar you touch. Quit at 55 and pull the exact same dollar you pay zero. One birthday, thousands of dollars. If you are planning to retire early, or you just got pushed out somewhere near 55, this is not a tax work to shrug at. It is a rule almost nobody times on purpose, and most people miss it by a single year. If you are 40 to 55 and managing your own retirement, this is not a willpower problem or a savings problem. It is a timing problem, and the IRS designed it so the details stay buried. The math behind this is uglier than most people expect. Here's what almost every early retirement video skips. Everyone knows the 10% early withdrawal penalty. You take money out of your 401k before 59 and a half, you owe 10% on top of regular income tax. Pull out $50,000 at the 22% bracket, and you hand $16,000 to the government before you see a cent. That part is well known. But there is a carve-out in the tax code called the Rule of 55, and this carve-out can eliminate that 10% penalty entirely. Not reduce it, not offset it, eliminate it. And the mechanism that controls whether you qualify or not comes down to a single calendar year. The year you separate from your employer relative to the year you turn 55. Get it right, you keep the $5,000 penalty on that $50,000 in your pocket. Get it wrong by 12 months, the IRS keeps it instead. This is what I call the 55 cliff. Not a gradual slope, not a sliding scale. A cliff, 1 year you are on solid ground. 1 year earlier, and you are in the air. I am Malcolm. This is dollars into decades. If you want the rules of retirement decoded before they cost you money, subscribe. It is the best return on your time you will find today. Now let us look at why the 55 cliff is so easy to miss. The standard picture most people carry around looks like this. You contribute to your 401k for decades. You plan to retire, ideally before 59 and a half, if you can swing it. You know there is a penalty for early withdrawals, so you assume you are stuck until 59 and a half unless something catastrophic happens. That picture is incomplete. The Rule of 55 is a legal exception baked into the IRS code. It says you can take penalty-free withdrawals from your 401k or 403b if you separate from your employer during or after the calendar year you turn 55. No magic number of years of service required, no special application, no hardship documentation, just a timing requirement tied to a single year. But the mechanics of that timing requirement are where people get wrecked. The rule does not care about your birthday. It cares about the calendar year. Say you were born in September 1970. You are planning to leave your job in October 2025. You turn 55 in September 2025. You separated in the same calendar year you turn 55. You qualify. Now take the same person. Same job, same plan, same account balance. But instead of waiting until October, you got frustrated and left in December 2024. You were still 54 in December 2024. Your birthday was not until September 2025. You left in the calendar year you were 54, not 55. You do not qualify, not for that separation. Not ever for that separation. The IRS does not let you go back and requalify when your birthday arrives. The year you leave is the year that counts. Period. That is the 1 year miss. 11 months of patience, or even less, separates two financial outcomes that look identical on the surface, but are separated by thousands of dollars in penalties. Let us run the numbers on what that actually costs. Marcus left his company in March 2025. He was 54. He had been with the company for 19 years. His 401k balance was $280,000. He knew he had some options, but he also knew he needed income. So he started pulling $30,000 a year from the account to cover living expenses while his other plans sorted themselves out. The penalty on $30,000 at a 10% rate is $3,000. This federal bracket on the withdrawal pushed to 22%, so another $6,600 in income tax on that amount. Total cost in year one, $9,600 on a $30,000 withdrawal. He is keeping $20,400. That is not a rounding error. That is 32 cents lost for every dollar he touched. Now meet Diana. Diana left the same month, March 2025, but she was 55 years old. Same bracket, same withdrawal amount, same plan structure. She owes the 22% income tax on that $30,000, just like Marcus does. That is $6,600, but the 10% penalty, gone. She keeps $23,400. Diana pockets $3,000 more than Marcus on the exact same transaction, not because she saved more, not because she invested smarter, because she left in the right calendar year. Over 2 years of withdrawals, that gap becomes $6,000. Over 5 years pulling $30,000 annually, Marcus loses $15,000 in pure penalty that Diana never owed. That is 5 months of living expenses. That is a year of health insurance premiums. That is real money converted from optional to mandatory, paid not because the IRS needs it, but because a calendar year went unchecked. Now here is where the story gets a second layer. Most people, when they first hear about the rule of 55, think the problem is solved once they know about it. Just wait until the right year. Mark the calendar. Done. And if the rule were as simple as a birthday, that will be enough. But there are 3 mechanics underneath this rule that can eliminate your eligibility even after you have done the year correctly. And none of them are obvious. The first mechanic is the IRA trap. The rule of 55 applies to the 401k or 403b plan of the specific employer you separated from in the qualifying year. It does not apply to IRAs. Not traditional IRAs, not rollover IRAs, not Roth IRAs. If you separate from your employer in the right year, qualify under the rule of 55, and then roll your 401k into an IRA because a financial advisor told you an IRA gives you better investment options, you have just surrendered your penalty-free access to every dollar in that account. Permanently. The IRA is now subject to the standard rules, and the standard rules say you owe the 10% penalty until 59.5. Fidelity's own guidance is explicit on this. Once you roll those funds into an IRA, the rule of 55 does not follow. The rule lives in the employer plan. Move the money out of the employer plan, and you move it out of the rule. Marcus, by the way, also rolled his balance into an IRA the month after he left his job. A broker told him consolidating made things cleaner. It did make things cleaner. It also cost him access to penalty-free withdrawals indefinitely. He did not find out until he tried to pull money 9 months later. The second mechanic is the plan specificity trap. The rule applies to the plan of the employer you separated from in the qualifying year, not a previous employer's plan. Not an old 401k sitting at a company you left 3 years ago, just the current one. If you have $90,000 in an old employer's 401k from a job you left at 48 and a current employer's plan worth $190,000, and you separate from the current employer at 55, only the current plan qualifies. The $90,000 at the old employer is subject to the full penalty until 59.5. Picture 2 bars. One short bar on the left representing your old employer's plan, locked behind a wall until 59.5. One taller bar on the right representing your current plan, open to you right now under the rule of 55. The wall between you and that short bar does not come down when you turn 55. It stays up until 59.5 regardless of when you separated. Treating both bars as accessible is a miscalculation that costs real money. The third mechanic is the partial withdrawal problem. Not every 401k plan permits partial withdrawals after you separate from service. Some plans require you to take the entire balance in a lump sum. That is a significant distinction. Pull $30,000 as a partial withdrawal and your taxable income rises by $30,000 for the year. Pull the entire $280,000 in one transaction and your taxable income rises by $280,000. You have avoided the penalty. But you have potentially pushed yourself into the 32 or 35% bracket for that year, depending on your other income. The penalty disappears, but the tax math can still bite you hard. Before you separate, you need to know whether your specific plan document allows partial withdrawals. This is a phone call to your plan administrator. It takes 10 minutes. It is worth making before you hand in your notice. Now let me address the objection I hear most often on this. You might be thinking, Malcolm, I am only 44. I am not thinking about 55 right now. This has nothing to do with me for another decade. And I get it. But here is the issue with that thinking. The decisions that affect your access to the Rule of 55 are being made right now. Every rollover decision you make between now and then has a consequence. Every job change has a consequence. If you leave a job at 47 and roll your 401k into an IRA for consolidation, you cannot unroll it to access the Rule of 55 later. If you are 52 and your employer is offering buyouts, the calendar year you accept that offer is the year that determines whether you qualify. You do not think about the rule when you are 55. You think about the rule when you are 44, 48, or 52, while you still have options. The legitimate counterargument is this. For many people, the Rule of 55 does not matter. If you have enough in taxable accounts, Roth IRA contributions you can access freely, or other income sources to bridge from 55 to 59.5 without touching the 401k, the rule is irrelevant. And if you plan to keep working until 60 or later, the rule never comes into play. The 55 cliff only has teeth if you are separating from an employer in that age window and you need access to those funds. For people not in that situation, this is academic. But if you are 40 to 56 and even a 15% chance exists that you will want to leave employment before 59.5, the cost of ignoring this rule is asymmetric. The downside of missing it is thousands of dollars in unnecessary penalties. The upside of knowing it is free. Here is the protocol. 3 steps, all executable before you make any major move. Step 1 is to find the calendar year you turn 55. That is the earliest year you can separate from your current employer and qualify. Write it down. Put it somewhere visible, near anything related to your retirement timeline. If you are running any scenario where you leave work early, that year is the hard floor. Leaving before that calendar year means you are leaving without the rule. Leaving after it means you have it. Step 2 was to not roll over your current employer's 401k before you know whether you will need it. This is the most common way people accidentally destroy their eligibility. If you separate from your employer in the qualifying year and you roll the funds into an IRA before you need to access them, the Rule of 55 is gone. The funds are now in an IRA. IRAs do not get this rule. The conventional wisdom that rolling into an IRA is always the smart move is not universal. If there is any chance you will need income from that account before 59.5, leave the money in the employer plan. You can always roll it later. You cannot unroll it. Step 3 is to call your plan administrator and ask 2 questions before you separate. First, does this plan allow partial withdrawals after separation? Second, are there any plan-specific rules about Rule of 55 distributions? Not all plans are identical. The IRS creates the exception, but the individual plan document governs the mechanics. A plan that requires full lump sum withdrawals changes your tax strategy entirely. You need to know this before you leave, not after. That is it. 3 steps. None of them require a financial advisor. None of them require a spreadsheet. They require paying attention to a calendar and making 1 phone call at the right time. One more thing before we close. There is a version of this story where you do everything right on the calendar and still leave money on the table. It happens when people hold old 401k accounts at former employers and assume those accounts also benefit from the Rule of 55. They do not. The rule follows the separation, not the person. But here's what you can do. If you have an old employer's 401k sitting somewhere and you are approaching the qualifying year with your current employer, you may be able to consolidate that old balance into your current employer's plan before you separate. Not into an IRA, into the current employer's plan. Once that money is inside the current plan and you separate in the qualifying year, it falls under the same Rule of 55 umbrella as everything else in that plan. Check whether your current plan accepts incoming rollovers. Many do. This is a step that needs to happen before separation, not after. The 55 cliff is not complicated once you see it. It is a cliff because the tax code does not grade on a curve. You are either on the right side of the calendar year or you are not. No partial credit, no appeals process. The $5,000 in penalty you avoid on a $50,000 withdrawal does not feel abstract when you are watching it leave your account on a transaction that your neighbor across the street did penalty-free because she left her job 11 months later than you did. Most retirement planning content tells you to maximize contributions, diversify your portfolio, and stay the course. All of that is correct. What it skips is the infrastructure underneath your 401k, the rules that govern when you can actually access the money you spent decades building. The 55 cliff is one of those rules. And unlike most things in the tax code, this one has a fix that fits in a calendar note and one phone call. The compound effect of getting your retirement access rules right does not show up in a return percentage. It shows up in the penalties you never paid, the rollovers you did not rush, and the calendar years you watched carefully enough to land on the right side of a cliff that most people never saw coming. Drop a comment with the year you turn 55. And if you are 40 to 55 trying to get the retirement infrastructure right before the decisions get made for you, subscribe to Dollars into Decades. We publish one of these every day. I will see you in the next one.